Hello once again, everyone, and welcome back to the 20 Things No One Told You About Fencing. Today joining me is Logan, and we're going to talk about you don't need to parry everything. So let's talk about what I mean by that. It is the temptation, especially when you're new, anything coming toward you, you just want to parry, which that's totally normal. You know, it's my first time, I'm playing with Logan, he throws any sort of cut at me, right? I stick my hand out there because I want to intercept it, get it away from me, all that sort of thing. And especially if you're using something like longsword or arming sword or what have you, then you also tend to get hit in the hands during this time, because even if he's not throwing particularly good cuts, it can land on your hands. But I want to talk about why you don't need to do that, and why, in fact, parrying closer to yourself can often be a benefit, especially early on. Not that you won't parry an extension. So first thing, let's talk about how big you actually are. Okay? So Logan, and it shows him very specifically, has a decent amount of reach on him if he wants to, right? So Logan, I think I'm at a distance. Prove me wrong. Perfect. Exactly what I expected. So he can cover quite a lot of range, yes. However, he's only able to do that in a straight line, right? I myself am not all that big. I do not protrude all that far forward, and I had to put my hand out of ways from my head, which for safety obviously, but also to get hit. If I'd chosen to do just a small retreat during that, he would not hit me. Likewise, if I chose to move laterally and he tried to track me while doing this, he can't move in two directions as far as he can in one direction. So it's not necessarily that hard to avoid a lot of these things. But even if we are properly in distance or what have you when these cuts are coming forward, I just don't need to worry. So give me a slow motion cut, please. It's not actually dangerous till it's about here, which also coincidentally is when his foot and stuff starts committing. Because when the sword is just first being born and beginning in the cut, it could go anywhere. So go ahead and load up for cut and start that real slow. At this point, he hasn't committed anything. So if I start parrying, he's not going to go where my sword is. He's going to go anywhere else that he wants to go, or if he does go where my sword is, he's probably going to mutate upon it. Instead, what I'm really more worried about, and I will parry when the danger comes in, is he starts cutting. There's the commitment, when it starts coming into my zone, into my space. Now, for right now, I'm just doing something very simple, because that's all I really need to do. And to be fair, as far as when you're first starting off, this is what I would really recommend you try. Don't try to parry everything, but if you are going to parry, try to parry as late as possible. And generally speaking, you should do some movement with this. So, for example, if we're doing linear fighting style stuff, then of course I already have my shape, so he throws a cut at me. Cool, I parried as late as possible, but still within my good shape. If we were doing more like lateral style movement, where he's doing a passing step, then sure, I move with it to keep myself extra safe, but my shape itself is no longer than it was when I didn't move. I just happen to be gaining a little bit of distance. And that's really the key thing. I want to parry close to myself in these shapes so that I have strength and so that I am not fighting my own momentum, but I can move these shapes to different places to gain certain advantages, which makes life a lot easier. So, the next part I want to talk about, and this is also true as far as like thrusts go, but thrusts are a little bit trickier. Cuts is really where it's at. And to be fair, cuts are the scarier thing. Like, as soon as that sword starts moving toward you, the temptation is to move. But again, you have so much more time than it seems. Especially as well, if you just go ahead and back up when you parry. Now you don't want to fight backwards, and I was someone that fought backwards for many years, right? But if someone's going to cut at me and I'm not looking to deal with it, gaining a little bit of distance while you do that, either with a simple retreat or passing back, allows you to parry even closer to yourself, because you're outrunning somebody. We'll get more to that in a second. Now, as far as the shapes you make, we're going to look at linear and lateral as their own independent things. But basically, let's switch sides real quick. My guards and parades exist for a reason, right? So let's take, for example, my inside guard from linear style fighting, a saber or broadsword, right? This looks the way it does because it is strong. If he were just to cut in the line it is, nothing needs to move in order to keep myself safe. So, when a cut or whatever is coming toward me, I don't need to stick it out into space to make it strong. I know it's strong. When he cuts at me, I put it in the way when it's a danger to me, and what that leads to is pretty much all of your parries, with only a few exceptions, but those exceptions are usually part of a counterattack. A lot of their blade gets past yours, and this is a good thing. So, let's switch sides. The reason for this is because whenever somebody attacks, and this is best exemplified with things like dagger or what have you, I want to be passive. I kind of want them to overrun me. And the reason for that is that if his blade is past me, then there's no way he can get it between us again to protect himself. And this is kind of the fundamentals of what makes parry riposte work. So, for example, he throws that one cut again. If I parry it way out here, keeping him away from me, then he has time and distance and all that to see what I might be throwing at him next and put something in the way. However, if I can wait longer and let him get deeper, that's already past me. There's no danger. And there's nothing to fear from a still sword. I mean, of course it's sharp and what have you, but your parade already took pretty much all the juice out of it. If he wants to do anything to you, he's going to have to redouble that action. And I have much more room to cut and then return again, or cut and then move to a new parry if he is trying to get me with his attack. Okay, but that's linear. That's meant to be, kind of exemplary and quick. What about something like lateral? Okay, so same sort of idea. When he throws a cut at me, and for example, I'm doing my hanging parry, right? Okay, I can do it way out here, where I have plenty of room with which to cut. But again, I stopped him very prematurely. I took a very, very big step, which made me safe. But Logan has all the time in the world to put something in the way, and may be able to set up something better than I have. So, instead, what I'm looking for is I need my shape to be this, and I need it to be close and strong, but I don't necessarily want to move creating distance with this. I want to instead be well within that shape, so that it's a lot harder for him to do anything against me because he is past me. A good way of thinking about this is to think about it in the same way thrusts work. So, for example, and we're using curved swords, this is going to illustrate wonderfully, right? A thrust never stops, right? There's no way, but unless he wants to thrust perfectly at my flat and manage to hit it, like perfectly, there's nothing that's going to stop him once he extends from completing that motion. All I can do is make his thrust go somewhere else. So when he thrusts at me, I ask it to go over there by putting something in the way. It goes past me, and that's what then allows me to stab it back. This is why counter thrusts exist. The same thing is true with cuts. I don't want to interrupt it prematurely unless I'm doing something percussive, but even if I am doing something percussive, so for example, I'll do a Wechselhalt, right? When he's cutting at me, I don't want to intercept this way up here, right? And just to show that, you just kind of let your hand turn when the cut comes down. Go ahead. Okay, he's still very, very far away from me, and the tempo I'm coming down, he's probably coming down. No, I want it to just skip over my head. When he cuts at me, there we go. And we're significantly closer to each other. His sword is much further away. Okay, but then this may lead to me being very close to my opponent after I parry or post, and then I've got problems with doubles. We talked about retreating and creating your space already, and I'll talk more about this in the shakes video. But once you kind of start to get this idea of, cool, I'm going to do my parry or post, I'm going to hit, then I can also start looking at my exit, my absolute, my retreat, my withdrawal, right? So I'll use that percussive parry again, and he cuts. Cool. Now I'm making sure that I'm not just hitting him and staying there. I'm leaving as I do so, but because my attack originated from a point within his blade, he doesn't have as much time to respond. Now, the final thing I want to talk about with this, and this is kind of a weirder one. So if you're at the beginning stages of things, keep this in mind, but don't overemphasize it. Is, again, you don't need to parry everything. So when a cut is coming toward me, and I'm not looking to parry riposte in that moment or do anything else, why should I engage it? One of the first things people will learn how to do is to cut combinations. So any combo you like, you'll hit me on the second one. So he throws his first cut, and then he throws the second cut. Cool, and he hits me, right? And he can get very fast at that. In particular, beginners who aren't worried about doing good steps or anything along those lines will probably even do that quicker because they'll spiral off their wrist or something else, right? Because of that nature, it's very hard for me to parry two cuts. Well, one of the easiest ways to deal with it is when he throws a cut at me and I'm not ready to lock down what he has, he can throw that second cut if he wants, but it's the exact same now timing as the first one he threw because I gained myself some distance. You can gain this linearly or laterally, right? Of course, dodging sideways is a little bit scarier, but when he cuts, getting yourself out of the way, nothing wrong with that. The important thing to remember, though, is that if you're going to dodge, if you're going to move, if you're not going to engage, I'm going to reset us back to square one. I have to avoid all of me, not just part of me. Slow motion cut, please. When he cuts at me, the temptation most people do is they jerk their face out of the way first, which leads to them getting hit other places, or even if they are trying to move their feet, because they move their head first, they don't take a terribly big step, or they only move one leg at a time. You want to be thinking about moving your entire spinal column. When he cuts at me, everything moves, which means everything gets out of the way, and I don't have a chance of getting hit on maybe the leg at the worst. But again, that's going to require a second action. So, the big thing that will come after this when you start not engaging when you're not ready is number one, your attackers are going to start setting up deeper things, which is good, because that means they're setting up deeper things rather than just blasting you. But number two is, they will probably start following you. So for example, Logan cuts at me and I void. Well, he can follow that very easily by either doubling his cut or leading with a thrust or anything else along those lines, right? In particular, thrust if we're talking linear. That's a good thing, because when he gets used to being able to do that, one, I can start looking at parrying that follow-up, so that's me learning to defend on a scale I'm more ready for, because I'm causing him to do his second attack rather than just getting blasted initially. But two, good. Logan's getting to work on a new skill that doesn't come up a whole lot, right? At least not outside of drill. My point of this matter is, altogether, don't worry about trying to rush your defense. Yes, try not to get hit, but don't get paralyzed by it. There's a lot of space between you, and as long as you're keeping about yay distance, regardless of weapon, and generally speaking, regardless of height, you have time to see what's coming, and it's your choice whether or not you want to intercept it. So when he throws that cut, right, do I want to be in range to riposte? Does I want him to get close to me? Or when he throws that cut, do I not want to be in range to riposte? So I move my good shape out of the way, or alternatively, if he throws a cut, I don't even want to engage with you right now, right? And that's what's going to help you not parry everything you look at and probably get you out of the well of getting stuck there and overrun by people who have good ready combos. Because once you're stuck, once you won't move, you're not going to get out of there. It takes a monumental Herculean effort to tell yourself to move out of the pocket when you've already parried a couple times in it, if you're not the one who's attacking. But otherwise, thank you very, very much, Logan. And thank you all very much for watching. We'll go over some other things that people don't tell you about fencing another time.